The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening to you. It's 11 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Two men have been arrested in Northern Ireland by officers investigating a major breach of data from the police. The suspects, aged 21 and 22, were detained under the Terrorism Act following a search in the Portadown area in County Armagh. The arrests are linked to last month's Freedom of Information data breach, when the names of around 10,000 officers and civilian staff were mistakenly revealed online. The PSNI have confirmed the arrests relate to the possession of the data and how it's been distributed, rather than the breach itself. Ministers are facing calls for transparency over the scale of aerated concrete in public buildings, with the condition of some, including hospitals, being described as jaw-dropping. Writing in The Times, the chair of the Commons Public Accounts Committee, Dame Meg Hillier, has warned the problem in schools is just the tip of the iceberg. Labour is demanding an urgent audit. They are planning to force a vote to compel the government to reveal information about the scale of the lightweight concrete used in schools. The Liberal Democrats have called for an immediate Cobra meeting. Rail passengers are being warned of further disruption tomorrow morning as a result of strike action by the RMT. Up to 20,000 union members at 14 operators walked out earlier, forcing services to start later and finish earlier. Members of the ASLEF union, train drivers that is, who were on picket lines yesterday, refused to work overtime. The General Secretary of the RMT, Mick Lynch, says he's hopeful for next week's negotiations.
We go into those talks with an attitude and a disposition to try and get an agreement, but there are some serious issues, as most people know now. We don't want to be on strike. We'd much rather be earning a living and running the service for the people who need to use it. So hopefully, if we can get a different mindset next week, we can get some progress.
Policing shouldn't be used as a political football. That's a warning for the Home Secretary after she accused officers of partisanship on controversial issues. The Police Federation of England and Wales says the government keeps changing the goalposts. They want officers to be more involved while simultaneously acting like robots. Suella Braverman's commissioned a review into activism and impartiality in the force, which Labour says demonstrates her political obsession with the issue. The Lib Dems have accused her of using the police as a weapon in her culture war. Bricks have been salvaged from a pub at the centre of an arson investigation in Himley in the West Midlands. Organisers of Save the Crooked House, which was destroyed by fire last month, held a ceremony as they stored the bricks in locked containers. They hope the bricks can be used to rebuild the pub. 2 men have been released on conditional bail after being arrested on suspicion of arson with intent to endanger life. This is GB News. You are fully up to date now on the news, and it is time now for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, the newspaper review show where we get comedians to get their fingers inky so you don't have to. I'm Stephen Allen, joined by Josh Howie and Nicholas DeSanto. One leans to the right, one dresses to the left. Good luck trying to work out which one's which. All doing well? Good weekend so far, chaps?
Yeah, welcome back.
It's nice to be back.
Yeah, mate. You've been up in Edinburgh?
Yes, you were on a holiday though, weren't you?
I was on holiday.
And I did, yeah.
Yeah, you sort of like...
The opposite.
You spent
of a
all your
holiday.
money for no pleasure,
Yeah.
just pain. You were sort of sadomasochistic holiday.
I always think doing Edinburgh's like buying an absolute load of scratch cards. You know you're going to lose a lot of money, but you might be the one it pays off for.
Yeah.
And this year, I was not the one it paid off for. Anyway, right, let's get into Sunday's front pages. The Mail on Sunday gives us Tesco boss, our staff need body cameras to end attacks. The Observer, whistleblower reveals culture of complacency on school safety. The Sunday Telegraph, Sunak defies net zero ban on new airports. Your Sunday Times goes with asbestos fears in crumbling buildings. The Sunday Mirror, Ministry of Defence hit by hackers. And the Star, I found my Mr. Ride. And those were your front pages. Right, first into the papers, we're going to have a look at this one. It's The Observer, Josh.
Yeah, so there's 2 interesting stories here. One, just quickly deal with. The Ukraine general claims decisive breach in the Russia line, which is good news. And that would be, if they've got through the first line, the argument goes that that seems to be where Russia's put most of its resources. So hopefully now it would then get a bit easier. I know that there's been frustration, particularly from America, voiced frustration with how slow going it's been because of landmines and whatnot. But maybe we're now going to see some results, which is great. Anyway, closer to home, we've got whistleblower reveals culture of complacency on school safety. This is someone who was working at the Department for Education, and they, for Nadeem Zawahi, when he was Education Secretary. And over just a couple of months, he said there were about 4 or 5 reports that came over the desk calling out exactly what we've seen over the news the last few days about this concrete that is now could literally make these buildings fall down. And that's only just over a few months, so who knows how long these reports have been coming out for.
Yeah.
Which is...
Well, it was 2019 when the one in Gravesend, the one that started this, the school in Gravesend where the part of the roof collapsed. So from then, we knew that there was an issue with schools being made of this fluffy concrete stuff. It's like they didn't learn the lesson of the 3 pigs. You've got to be careful what you make your building out of, do you know what I mean? And obviously in the 12-inch version, the one that makes it out of aerated concrete lasts a bit longer but still gets eaten by the wolves. I mean, it's an embarrassment, isn't it, Nicholas?
Even the 3 pigs didn't go for aerated bricks, did they? Yeah. Eventually they learned the lesson. But we were discussing this actually last night when it broke out on all headlines. I was wondering what sort of concrete is supposed to last only 30 years. I pointedly mentioned that some Roman buildings are still standing.
Yeah.
And they invented concrete, so maybe we can learn from them.
I mean, I must admit, of all the reading I've done, I haven't been able to find out if we've learned that it lasts for 30 years after 30 years of it being around. When they built it, did they know how long it would last? Or was this a 1950s, early 60s
But I believe
building material?
it's been known for a while, for at least...
We could have remedied.
At least, say, 13 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens to mirror any other thing. But, and this is what this whistleblower is saying, that it seemed like they were more concerned with saving money than they were with preventing any loss of life.
Sorry, I hate
No, that's all right, mate.
The only winner here is the Aero chocolates because they have been repeatedly compared to their brand.
I've been wondering why I've been so hungry watching this show, being on it.
Yeah. No one's talked about them for years. All of a sudden, all it takes is a few broken schools. The only problem is, though, who's going to keep buying all the Aeros if schools keep landing on kids? That would be the downside. Well, it's one of the downsides. Next, we move to the Mirror. Nicholas, what have they gone with?
Russia-linked hackers hit UK Ministry of Defence as security secrets leaked. I was thinking I need to come up with some jokes about data breach because they are appearing more often than I would have thought on headlines.
I've got 30 minutes.
Okay,
I've got a good 30 minutes.
You're welcome to chime in anytime.
Come and see my show. Wonderful.
Hackers, basically, this is a group called Lockbit, allegedly with links to Russian organized crimes, and they have breached the database of this company called Zone, which is a firm that produces actual security in terms of perimeter security and access to a lot of high sensitivity UK military bases. It looks like stuff coming out of a James Bond movie. So basically, the vulnerable sites where we have information related to them leaked include HMMB Clyde nuclear submarine base. This is where the Trident system is based. The Porton Down chemical weapon lab and the GCHQ listening post. So quite potentially grave consequences.
But it should be said, this company makes the security wire.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the hack would be bring wire cutters.
Yeah. I mean, I did read this story and then realise, well, actually, fences aren't that top secret because at least half of the fence is visible from non-military land, just on the outside of the building. So if all they've got is a blueprint of where the fences are, you can get that from...
But maybe they know which fences are electrified and which fences are maybe more vulnerable.
Yeah, and with the story that Grant Shapps, our new Defence Secretary, his passwords are along the lines of 1, 2, 3, 4. This is maybe why they're allowed access or gaining access.
It's a good thing we live on an island. At least we have some natural seas to protect us.
I don't think those wire fences are doing any good, to be honest.
Let's move on to the Mail on Sunday now, Josh.
Yeah, Tesco boss, our staff need body cameras to end attacks. This is obviously, I don't know if it's like part cost of living crisis, part just society crumbling, but it isn't great to see how many, he said like 200 employees have been attacked each month. That's not good, man. And people working at Tesco's, they're doing a hard job. And, the idea that this is, really it's the police who should be stepping up and preventing this. But what he says is that about 2/3 of the retail crimes, police don't even turn up. So this is, again, more bagging on them to do something, and this is what they're sort of resorting to, is like, oh, we're going to put on... But so what? If they're going to get these cameras, if the police aren't then going to turn up and do anything about these physical assaults, what's the difference?
Yeah, I suppose it means that new episodes of You've Been Framed are going to be hilarious, where we just get to see a lot of Tesco's people get knocked over. But other than that, you're right. What is it? Does it make a difference, Nicholas, when you get...
Maybe they're hoping it will work as a deterrent, or at least if a claim is pressed and if the police do show up, you have some hard evidence.
Yeah. But I've got a camera on me right now, and it's not stopping you kicking me under the table, so I don't see what the difference is.
Yeah, it's because you know to get away with it. Whereas in Tesco, they actually could bring a court case, but this place is not going to worry about it at all. Let's finally go to the bastion that is the Star, Nicholas.
So this is a wacky story, and understandably, it's the fourth headline chosen for this Saturday. A woman who falls in love with roller coasters finds new funfair fella. So I don't know what to make of it. This is a German lady who apparently has a penchant, or more than that, for roller coasters. It's all in the title. And she
understandable.
I don't know. I'm trying not to be insensitive towards people with mental health.
No. I mean, it could be a physical attraction. If you think about it, there's a lot of bouncing.
Okay.
Along, that could be part of what the attraction is there.
Difficult relationship, lots of ups and downs.
Yeah, I thought the washing machine was
really?
the preferred, object in that department.
But she has something they call objectophilia, where you find objects attractive. Imagine that, though, Josh, lying next to someone who's technically your spouse and they just lie there and do nothing.
I don't need... Is that what you're trying to get at? I don't know. Who have you been speaking to? But, yeah, it's a slightly weird one, isn't it, when they're basically putting someone on the front cover with mental health issues and going, ha-ha, look at her.
Yeah.
And then we're like, ha-ha, look at her. So she is in Germany, so she's probably not watching the show. That's the only thing. And she's probably on a roller coaster.
Fair enough. And loving every second of it.
Yeah.
Most of her life must be spent in queues. Poor love. Well, that's it for part one. Coming up, COVID is back. Oh, we love nostalgia. ULEZ won't work. And are you too fat for a hospital? Find out shortly.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen, sorting out the news week from the News Chaff with Josh Howie and Nicholas DeSanto. Let's go to the Independent. Josh talks about a new virus called coronavirus. I'm sure it won't amount to anything.
No, not at all. You know what? I feel like one of those talking heads on Channel 5. Sort of, do you remember those days? Do you remember? I was watching telly, COVID, a thing called COVID. Here's fears over new Corolla COVID variant as scientists warn UK has let our guard down. Now, scientists turn out to be one scientist, and the case is one confirmed case in England. And this is quite an interesting article because it's the Independent trying to keep the narrative going. Of course, it's the Independent, and I hadn't seen it in any other newspapers. And I'm not saying there isn't this new variant out there, but it seems to be that what happens with viruses is over time they become more transmittable, but they become weaker, and that's how they keep on going. So the idea they're still trying to push it, and there's this scientist who say we're going to be wearing masks by Christmas. No, we're not. No, we're not. Enough people now have learnt the lessons of the past, hopefully, you would hope, and this is just totally ridiculous. It's just, you know what it also feels like? It's like when you read a lot of newspapers, there's this cyclical thing. So it's like, oh, find out the real meaning of the word Twix. Why is it called a Twix? And this is the version of that. Remember COVID? Well, there's a new thing of COVID. No.
You've been doing COVID wrong. The top 5 ways you've been misusing COVID.
Yeah, totally. They're trying to bring it back. It ain't coming back. Forget it.
Are you bothered by this? I mean, I'm bothered by the fact it's called Parola Corona. This is hard enough. I thought we were naming them after Greek letters.
Yeah,
and drinking a Corona.
Quite a tongue twister for the news presenters to earn their salary. If it becomes, in fact, a thing, but as Josh was suggesting, there is no appetite. The scientists quoted here also say that there is general skepticism or unwillingness on the side of the public. And whose fault is that? I just think some people are anxious to give those Ukrainian flags on their social media profiles a rest and bring back the rainbow, you know, and the pots banging on Thursday evenings.
So the article says that the government's brought forward its autumn vaccine programme, which makes sense. I mean, life is now moving towards the overlap of what the Great Barrington Declaration was and time, meaning that's now what's going to happen. So the vulnerable will be more protected. So I think you're right. People who don't need to wear masks won't be. People who don't need injections won't be worrying about it.
No, and also climate change with everything. The seasons have moved anyway.
Yeah.
So it all makes sense.
Makes sense.
So let's not go there.
Sunday Mirror now, Nicholas, and this sounds like a story that is a Les Dawson joke. I'm not saying my mother-in-law's fat, but the hospital will only treat her on the ground floor.
Did you know Les Dawson? Before we get into this.
No,
if not, that was just a weird moment for you, isn't it? You thought I'd have a problem there.
No, but you kind of steal my joke, because, you know, those Yo Ma joke, your mama is so fat, she's got, like, her bum is in 2 different postcodes or things like that.
You know my mum, do you? Sorry, Mum.
Our references are interestingly different. That you're down with the hip people with the your mama jokes. And I'm still doing Les Dawson stuff.
I must have seen some American stand-up. but now it's, your mama is so fat she can only be treated on the ground floor of a hospital. The same story with aerated concrete in hospitals this time. Huge expenses, more than £1 billion required for some hospitals, maybe some 8 hospitals who have been heavily, constructed based on this sort of concrete, have to be basically razed to the ground and rebuilt. But in the meantime, huge
by taking in obese people.
Well,
wrecking balls.
Yeah, it would be a nice solution. But you know, if there wasn't enough stigma attached to obesity, which is maybe some good takeaway from this whole story.
Don't mention takeaways. I love it. Sorry.
Good one. But yeah, if you thought basically traveling next to an obese person on an airplane is annoying, wait until maybe the hospital roof falls on you because of the obese person being.
You're in the floor under a fat person, yeah.
But yeah, in all seriousness, it's a big issue because they have to spend millions of pounds just to momentarily counter the effects of these collapsing buildings. And then they have to spend even more, basically, to rebuild them from scratch.
And the NHS got loads of money, Josh, am I right?
Yeah, loads of money. I mean, that is the big point here. It is quite, I just want to say, it is quite funny that the person who was talking about this, Labour MP Meg Hillier, was saying that the reason was because of the equipment that went with the overweight people was the reason why. So it was her way of sort of trying to be like, no, it's not them, they're fine. It's the equipment that would,
trying to be diplomatic.
But you're absolutely right, and it's hundreds of millions of pounds that they're using. And what's interesting here is it's going to cost 800 million to fix all this stuff, but it's going to cost 600 million to just build a new hospital. Let's get down to figures now.
I'm sure someone pledged to build some new hospitals a while ago.
Someone somewhere back in the day, I don't know. Yeah, so maybe this is the excuse that they need. But
yeah. To the Sunday Telegraph, Josh, and there's a bit of a stink over the ultra-low emission scheme.
Oh, my gosh, it goes on. And I feel sorry for... I mean, it is relevant to people outside of London because the idea is, of course, that it's spreading to different cities and whatnot. ULEZ will not help Sadiq Khan reach net zero by 2030, say experts. Now, it's a slight misnomer, What? Journalism doing a misnomer? Because it was never they're basically saying that it's going to 3%. What the ULEZ that we've had in play in central London has led to a 3% reduction in CO2. And they're saying that if you continue those figures, then it would be to the end of the century. Well, first of all, that's not the only means by which they're trying to get to net zero. So it's but it does show that the figures that supposedly this is all about trying to make people's lives better isn't as clear-cut as, of course, Sadiq Khan is trying to present it as. And we've also, the number of cars that are going to be actually cut from the roads is, I think it's going to be like 50,000 or something. Yeah, 46,000, about 100,000. Yeah, so it's going to be cut from 160,000 cars to 46,000. That's not a huge decline. They're saying it's not going to make that much.
Considering a total of 3 million vehicles in the whole London.
Yeah. But they're measuring the wrong thing, aren't they? Because a modern compliant car might knock out more carbon dioxide because catalytic converters turn carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide. So it's not a gas that we're worried about in terms of air quality. It's a gas you're worried about in terms of greenhouse thing. We're comparing apples and oranges, he says, sounding like a businessman from the 90s.
So is this a totally separate study in terms of increased helping air pollution?
Yeah.
Which is different chemicals.
ULEZ is all about the nitrogen stuff, all about the particulates and hydrocarbons, whereas carbon dioxide, not an issue to do with air quality, is obviously an issue to do with carbon. It's in the clues in the title.
We've got a scientist back.
Yeah, he's back.
He's back in the mix.
Sunday Times, Nicholas, and I've just got back from Edinburgh, so it turns out that my comedy shop there wasn't the only thing that's been described as full of poo.
You're being too modest. I hope no viewers are having a late dinner or a kebab after a night of clubbing.
No, don't worry, they're all left-wing.
Listening.
Chocolate roll.
Scottish beaches have 8 times more sewage debris than English ones. So basically, a lot of inappropriate, as if sewage in the seas or on the beaches was not enough. Now we have a lot of inappropriate items, which are essentially sanitary products, wet wipes, condoms, and
naked Scottish people.
You name it. So 8 times more than England and Wales. And this association, Marine Conservation Society, has done some beach cleaning. In the worst case, which was in Falkirk, they found an average of 358 items per 100 meters. That is more than basically 3 items every meter that you walk along the beach.
Dirty Falkirk. You dirty, dirty Falkirkians.
In their defence, it's really cruel that longshore drift means that our condoms are turning up there.
That's what they're trying to blame. Oh, those English condoms coming here to Scotland.
Are we that frisky down here?
Not for a while.
I'm surprised I don't even remember condoms. Anyway, but they are trying to blame it on people's habits and whatever. And yes, there is a problem with wet wipes and whatnot. But there is an interesting idea, because it's nationalised up there, the water system, but they don't test their overflows. I think it's 3% they test. Whereas down here, which is private, 91% are tested, and they're trying to move to 100%. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm a fan of private water, and that money is, all those profits are taken out of this country. But it does show that if you are going to have nationalised water, that it should be run properly, which they're not doing in Scotland.
You almost redeemed yourself by going for the private industry.
I just like to keep people guessing. I like to keep the audience, they're getting ready to write a nice comment on social media and then take it back.
Do you love how we're being blamed for it, though? The idea that it's flushing things that you can spot. That's the problem, because if you didn't flush all the tissues and the wet wipes, everything else, all the sewage, you wouldn't notice that it's washed over and you've been for a swim with it, because it'd all dissolve. Maybe stop putting sewage in our water. That feels like that might solve it as well.
They've also found more alligators washing up as well.
In Scotland?
Yeah, than English alligators.
Is that what it is?
It's a very niche reference to anybody who watched 80s horror movies.
There are 3 turtles as well I've spotted. You need to pay attention
I feel too young. Thank you.
Oh, cheers for making us feel old. Sunday Mirror, Josh, and there hasn't been this level of scandal to do with a kiss since Madonna snogged Britney on the VMAs. And I don't know what body part of VMA is, but...
It's, I'll show it to you afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
I've got that video as my screensaver. Spanish football faces fresh nightmare amid Luis Rubiales, or as you should call him, Luis Rubiales, just culturally fit in. Saga as players threaten strike. So these female Spanish, there's lots of followers out there of the female Spanish Football League, but it's about to start. But they've basically correlated, they're trying to bring in another story where they're threatening strike, but they're threatening strike not on this issue. They're threatening strike because they're not getting paid enough and because of conditions. So there. But, you know, he's still going... Lewis is still saying, you know, I didn't do anything, it was consensual, and I've watched that. You've seen the video,
It was
right?
just a peck.
Whatever, mate. It's not like it wasn't consensual. It wasn't like he was like, "Is it all right if I kiss you on the mouth?" Yeah, whatever. No,
You can't debate whether it was but first of all, the player Jennifer Hermoso, she had a Will Smith moment, if you like, because initially she was fine with it, but then essentially Anglo-Saxon media with the #MeToo experience blew up the thing out of proportion, and then she changed. She changed.
But you know what?
Version.
People change their experiences as they think more about it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what she felt in the moment could be different as she had time to reflect on it.
Blindness lets you bury some things in the moment as well sometimes, isn't it?
Fair enough, but I mean, I don't think it was anything major to be buried. But what is ultimately being damaged by this is women's football. And now some of those Spanish football players who have just won the World Cup for the first time, beating England, the European champions, this could have been a great, you know, poster moment for women's football, right? And then instead, they are saying our whole victory has been overshadowed by this incident. And whose fault is that? Okay, you can maybe ask for an apology. Yeah, but getting him to, or pushing for him to resign just because of a peck, I think it's been blown out of proportion.
It was a proper old kiss on the lips. I don't even let my wife touch me kiss me on the lips.
I don't think. Are you familiar with the Spanish or the Mediterranean kisses or calls?
That's the problem.
Yeah.
I see this story as an introvert. I just think, just back off, everyone. Just, even handshakes are a bit much. Oh, and also, I'd just like to do a quick update, because I noticed that his mum was on doing a hunger strike.
Oh, yeah.
And then 2 days later, she stopped. So I think, can we downgrade it to... It's not a hunger strike,
Maybe she was just going to do a little, lose a bit of weight.
It's a protest detox at best.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's the way to go.
Well, that's it for part 2. But coming up, pornography, lesbian speed dating and vigilantism. Sounds like a lovely evening. Find out more soon.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. I'm Jonathan Vautry, here with your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Hope you've managed to enjoy Saturday. It will be ending on a relatively fine note for many of us. Some late sunny spells to be had and generally a lot of dry, clear weather into the night as well. We'll allow for some mist and fog patches to develop into the early hours of Sunday morning, though, most extensively for central eastern areas of England. Further towards the north, we've got a band of rain pushing into northern Scotland. Could be heavy at times for the Isle of Lewis and the Northern Isles, but most of us will see our temperatures holding up around 13, 14 degrees Celsius as we start off Sunday morning. So a fairly mild start. Will take a little bit of time for that mist and fog to clear, but eventually it will clear its way off, and many of us will see a good amount of sunshine throughout the day, feeling really pleasantly warm in that highs of 26 degrees Celsius possible across southeastern areas of England. Further to the north, though, that rain will be lingering across the Highlands up into the Northern Isles, so being a much fresher here, and gales around coastal areas for a time as well. High pressure will be hanging on into the start of the new working week, still though with that lingering front across the far north, and also the isobars squeezing together across the West Country. So Monday, generally a bit of a breezier day for parts of Devon, Cornwall, definitely some coastal gusts, but elsewhere winds will be relatively light inland, and there'll be a decent amount of sunshine throughout much of the day, again once that early mist and fog does clear its way off. We hold on to some of that sunshine throughout the rest of the week, perhaps a little bit more cloud developing more towards Thursday, but that's also where our temperatures will be climbing the highest. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes, and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners and straight into the Mail on Sunday, Nicholas. People in Texas might find it easier to look at porn, which might help cut down on gun crime a bit.
Well, interesting take. I find this interesting because it's a clash between good intentions. Federal judge strikes down Texas law requiring age verification in Victory for Pornhub after they argued it violated free speech. So basically in Texas and some other states, state legislatures had asked for people to have the obligation to identify themselves, especially in terms of the age requirement for sites such as Pornhub, but also sometimes social media and so on. But Pornhub and their allies argue that this goes against free speech because the users would have had to provide some government-issued ID form in order to prove that they are above 18 or 21 or whatever age that is. Mm-hmm. And that data would have been registered by the state and, of course, would have been a privacy issue. They argued that for an aspect of your life that is so personal and intimate, you shouldn't be required to do that. And this federal judge has accepted that.
Does it feel like it's the First Amendment? Like when they came up with the freedom of speech, they were thinking of people sat next to laptops having a good old time?
Yeah, well, this is the least most excited I've been when we talked about Pornhub. And I think that's sad. They're having to they were ready to dig out their magazines. The US District Judge David Ezra was presiding. He was looking very relaxed. And
done his research.
Yeah, extensive.
You might be in contempt of court by
well, I think I'm safe from going to Texas. This is arguably a free speech issue. He's basically saying it's too broad. If there are other ways of determining your age or proving your age without uploading your, and letting the government access your deep and darkest secrets, then not that I have ever been on the site, of course. But also, they were also compelled to say on their website that watching pornography is addictive and impairs mental development. And
encourages child exploitation and demand for prostitution. So these are very, very discreet.
I don't know about the last ones. The first two, yeah.
Do you think it's like, smoking, when they used to put pictures, maybe they still do, pictures of, the body parts that are affected on the packets?
Naked body parts.
I
don't remember this.
No, but maybe they should do that on Pornhub, like a picture of just some bloke who's just pale because he's not left the house in ages, just sends be careful, otherwise this will be you.
OK, well, let's just do the photo right now.
There it is. Beautiful. Don't go back to me. The Telegraph now, and it's Saturday night. It's gone 11, so it must be time for Josh to get angry about trans issues.
Woo, woo, woo! Trans maternity report backed by NHS could have harmed women. So this is a new study that looked at this report by the LGBT Foundation, and they found it to be methodically flawed. The NHS, by the way, spent a lot on this report, but they were going to spend £100,000 to retrain their staff on the basis of this report. And it turns out the report basically was looking into trans men or people who are non-binary and their experiences during childcare, during the birth process. And from this report, they were like 30% of non-binary didn't receive any care at all from the NHS. And that just turned out to be an absolute lie, because 82% said that they did have like antenatal care and stuff like that. So it was a badly worded questions in it. Turns out that they only used 4 people's experiences in this report, and one person basically said that they didn't feel that supported. They were like, right, because of this one person, we're now going to stop using the word women. We're going to say chest feeders, and we're going to do this all to be inclusive of this one person. Yet, because of that, the unintended consequences are that the people who don't speak English as a first language and people who aren't medically literate, maybe, and all those people would then be excluded and could be put to harm. So it's great that they're looking more into this kind of stuff and into the madness that have sort of taken over our institutions. But as they pointed out, it's quite dangerous. What other reports have gone out there, and not even related to the trans issue, but in terms of like the diversity reports, which is a good thing. But when you look into the actual stuff, how much of it is flawed?
Well, they talk about actually the COVID things. It doesn't have to be a diversity issue at all. This is what the headline actually kind of makes it seem like it's a different story. The story should be about bad science and bad research. And it actually says in it, because this was about gender issues, then maybe it got caught. Whereas if bad research is happening all over the place, we've got big problems.
Or in this case, instead of bad science, try no science. So this is activism leading to policy change, which is what this report by Oxford, Coventry and West of England, Bristol University has come up with. So in order to accommodate a tiny minority, they have changed the whole language. And it's interesting that it mentions non-native English speakers. Imagine this immigrant woman has just come to this country, she's using the NHS, and she thinks she has learned English. All of a sudden, she's faced with words such as chest feeder and birthing person and all that kind of stuff, as if corporate diversity training was not bad enough. At the BBC, we had the LGBT, ethnic minority, Muslim telling us how to use the English language. And we were like, based on what? Because corporations cowering to all these diversity trainings to look good. And now at NHS level, you have something that can be actually, according to this report, detrimental to the health of the majority of people, because communication gets so confused.
Let's not miss the context, though, that the suggestions of this report were already turned down because the clinicians said this is rubbish, and the NHS listened to the clinicians before the additional research proved that the science was very...
But we've seen NHS websites changing and using exactly this language that has been put forward and has already been on the website. So even though this particular report, this £100,000 they're going to spend, they have spent many £100,000 implementing other reports on these kind of issues. And also, how much does it cost to do these reports in the first place?
Yeah, although if you're going to do them right would be the way to look at the science, wouldn't it? Sunday Telegraph now, Nicholas, and biological males will not be allowed to go lesbian speed dating in London. So it turns out I am free on Thursday.
I'm sorry for that, but still in the LGBT theme, a lesbian speed dating event can ban trans women. So this was a big story because this pub in Bloomsbury, central London, had a weekly speed dating event for lesbians, and then some trans women or their charity, rather, got angry about it and tried to shut the event down. Now, the owners of the pub, which is called the Stonegate Group, the biggest pub holders in the UK, no less, have had the backbone, thankfully, a good story for a while, to actually say no to cancel culture. The idea is lesbians, we know what lesbians are, and they don't like men and certain parts of the equipment. My favorite comedian, Norm MacDonald, who passed away a short while ago, had a very funny routine about why they don't like the equipment, but they go for the plastic ones. But it's up to them. It's up to them. And if they want to be in a women-only event, they should be able to do so. And we need to have more venues who stand up to the cancel culture, unlike what the people at Fringe did with Graham Linehan, and give people the spaces that they deserve, rather than going for cancelling them.
Yeah, I mean, the question is whether this Stonegate group are being brave, or whether they realise their legal advice they've been getting, which Stonewall has been given out over the last few years, saying that it's like according to the Equality Act, that they would be illegal if they were to not allow. Now, actually, that advice was wrong. So the LGB Alliance have been giving out that actually they would be discriminating against by banning single-sex spaces. So I don't know if they're being brave or if they lawyers are finally realising.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but
but it's a positive step that this has happened. Like you say, hopefully it's going to lead to more things. And there's a court case in Australia where a lesbian dating app has been taken to court for not including biological men. There are biological men who are arguing for to break the cotton ceiling. They're saying that they're lesbians and that lesbians should accept the female penis and whatnot, or they're bigots if they don't. So all this stuff is ridiculous. This is a victory of common sense, victory for women, for lesbians. And great, I'll be there on Thursday.
Quick hit on this one in The Observer, Josh. The TV show The Equalizer has just become real.
Yeah, we don't need police. The New Forest Village taking the law into its own hands. This is an ongoing theme of the police just essentially haven't been doing their job, if their job is to stop crime. And what they've been doing is they just don't even report burglaries anymore. They have Facebook groups and whatnot, and they've been solving crimes that way and getting their stuff returned to them. They haven't seen any police. They've basically just given up. And this is from The Village. It has the biggest number of unsolved burglaries in the UK. This is a problem all across the UK, but it's a sad testament to where we're at the moment.
It's a cute story, though, isn't it? I know what you mean. It's sad, the state, but also it's a little tiny village with fewer people living in the village than there are people working in the Hampshire Police Force, and yet somehow, come on, at least Netflix make some sort of film out of this.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of that film, the space guys. Nick.
Hot Fuzz?
Hot Fuzz, yeah. It's got a bit of a Hot Fuzz vibe about it.
I'd say that the police in New Forest in Hampshire are stealing their salaries, if you're pardoning the pun.
They'll get investigated on a Facebook group if you're not careful. Well, that's it for this part, but coming up in the final section, we'll let you know where you can buy tasty breast milk. What demographic are we going for here? Not sure, but we'll find out more shortly.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo,
there'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners, kicking off with The Observer. Josh, Silicon Valley elites are creating a utopia. I bet their broadband speed's going to be good.
It'll be more than broadband. They're going to have, like, it won't be broadband. It's just going to be some direct into your brain. It'll be like some new technology we haven't even heard of yet. Plan for 55,000-acre utopia dreamed by Silicon Valley elites unveiled. Now, this is a company called Flannery Associates. They've been secretly, over the last few years, buying just swathes of parts of North America, around in California, near San Francisco. They spent nearly $1 billion. People were starting to look into them and going, wait a minute, this is a little bit dodgy. And then finally, they've released their website that have done some mock-ups of this wonderful utopia with, there's going to be renewable electricity and things like that. It's going to be crazy. And but yeah, this is the interesting thing for me is because San Francisco is which was the closest city and where all these tech people live right now, is arguably sort of a city in decline. They've got some, by pushing through a lot of progressive policies that have arguably gone too far. You have people dying on the street, homeless people leaving their car windows open because to show that there's nothing in there worth stealing. So I'd be interested to see what policies these very, very wealthy people are going to implement within their own little perfect city. Are they going to have strict laws, or are they going to sort of bring their stuff with them and it's all going to decline?
Is it going to be like an uber-rich gated community, though? Because you won't have to worry. If everyone on there... There's an episode of 30 Rock where they come up with the idea of pay police £1 million so that they can protect the super-rich. Is this what it's basically going to be like?
My first concern is where are they going to get water? Because California has a big water problem. A lot of Californians are leaving the state because of...
I think they get them in bottles, bottled water. They drink a lot of bottled water.
Evian?
That's a good idea. Let's crack on to the Mail on Sunday, Josh. And if you want to drink breast milk as a grown adult but keep getting banned from hanging out near maternity wards, we have good news for you.
Indeed, scientists developed new supplement for adults designed to mirror breast milk, which provides benefits for tackling inflammation, improving gut health and helping muscle recovery. This is from an Israeli food tech firm, Moleic, and this mum, and she was like, who had the idea when she was breastfeeding her kid, and she was like, okay, and they wanted to point out that it's definitely not lab grown, but to be honest, I prefer my breast milk organic, so I will not be participating in this.
I'm sure there's a segment for this, there's a niche for this on Pornhub.
Yeah, pasteurised? No, it only comes up to...
Semi-skimmed?
Hey.
Hey.
I don't even know. We're just saying vaguely rude things.
Anything to do with just milk.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Would you, Nicholas, would you have some breast milk? Have you ever tried breast milk?
Not
Obviously
since I was 2.
giant.
Yeah. No.
Lucky you.
I think I'll pass.
Oh, OK.
I've never tried it, ever. Mum.
I'll keep it in the fridge. The Mail on Sunday, Nicholas, and young women are using makeup to make them unapproachable. Is it blackface?
Almost, in terms of the layers, and I've seen some videos. How Gen Zers... Pardon?
On Pornhub?
No, on Twitter, on YouTube. How Gen Zers ward off unwanted attention. Young women boast about layering on thick makeup to make them unapproachable. So this is a great story for these self-centered young women who claim that they want to go out and not be approached, or at least on some days. So they apply this so-called unapproachable makeup style to them, full-on glamour has been described. Dark eyes, full lips, chiseled cheekbones, intimidating girl makeup, or dramatic lashes.
I believe we've got an example now.
It's a picture of Nick. They are great cheekbones. They put me off.
Oh, thank you very much. Being a weekend, we don't even have non-approachable.
Don't let people know behind the scenes what's going on at GB News.
We did have makeup last night because it was Friday.
It's win-win, though, isn't it? I mean, they don't want to be approached. People don't want to approach non-approachable people.
It's a win-win because if they are approached, they're going to say, oh, I'm attractive, another ego boost. And if they are not approached, they're going to say, oh, it was because of the unapproachable makeup.
This makes no sense, because basically when you read the gist of it, they're going, what we do is we make ourselves so good-looking that men are intimidated. So is it like that women wear makeup to deliberately look bad normally? Is that how it is? And now they're like, oh, actually, now I'm going to use makeup to look good?
That's why I never get approached. Listen, we've got a minute to try and deal with this. We can't not talk about it. Daily Star Sunday tells us the obvious truth, Josh.
Yes, why bearded lads are more attractive to women, according to science! It's science that tells us this. Basically, if you're well-groomed, beard, it shows that you have patience, you have maturity, it hides your weaker chin and your a scars, it accentuates your jawline.
A lot of heroes have beards.
A lot of heroes have beards. And basically, scientific studies, multiple scientific studies, prove that women find men with beards more attractive. Now, stubble like that is over there. We're looking at the full-on beard. The full masculine beard is what women really want.
This is so attractive, it makes me unapproachable.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, very good.
My stubble as well.
Is that stubble? Is that?
Yeah, this is the thing.
nice.
Yours is a proper beard, I'd say.
Sweet to see you trying.
Thank you.
Do you worry that you don't come across as manly enough because of your lack of beard?
No, it's just I had 2 headliners shifts back to back. I couldn't be bothered to shave the second night.
You ever thought of growing the full beard so you look like a real man?
I spent my high school years in the Islamic Republic of Iran, so I resent bearded image.
That's why Iranians are so attractive, men and women.
The show is nearly over.
Coming from the Jews, quite something.
Let's not get into that one. Take another look at the Sunday's front pages. The Mail on Sunday says, Tesco boss, our staff need body cameras to end attacks. The Observer, whistleblower reveals culture of complacency on school safety. The Sunday Telegraph, Sunak defies net zero ban on new airport. The Sunday Times, asbestos fears in crumbling buildings. The Sunday Mirror, Ministry of Defence hit by hackers. And The Star, I found my Mr. Ryder. Those are your front pages. That's all we've got time for. Thank you to my guests, Josh Howie and Nicholas DeSanto. And we are back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Josh trying to keep Lewis Schaefer and Cressida Wetton in check. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned to breakfast and have a good one. Goodbye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. I'm Jonathan Vautry, here with your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Hope you've managed to enjoy Saturday. It will be ending on a relatively fine note for many of us. Some late sunny spells to be had and generally a lot of dry, clear weather into the night as well. We'll allow for some mist and fog patches to develop into the early hours of Sunday morning, though, most extensively for central eastern areas of England. Further towards the north, we've got a band of rain pushing into northern Scotland. Could be heavy at times for the Isle of Lewis and the Northern Isles, but most of us will see our temperatures holding up around 13-14 degrees Celsius as we start off Sunday morning. So a fairly mild start. Will take a little bit of time for that mist and fog to clear, but eventually it will clear its way off. And many of us will see a good amount of sunshine throughout the day, feeling really pleasantly warm in that highs of 26 degrees Celsius possible across southeastern areas of England. Further to the north, though, that rain will be lingering across the Highlands up into the Northern Isles, so being a much fresher here and gales around coastal areas for a time as well. High pressure will be hanging on into the start of the new working week, still though with that lingering front across the far north and also the isobars squeezing together across the West Country. So Monday, generally a bit of a breezier day for parts of Devon, Cornwall, definitely some coastal gusts, but elsewhere winds will be relatively light inland and there'll be a decent amount of sunshine throughout much of the day, again once that early mist and fog does clear its way off. We hold on to some of that sunshine throughout the rest of the week, perhaps a little bit more cloud developing more towards Thursday, but that's also where our temperatures will be climbing the highest. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well,
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right,
You will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
on TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to